after installing our operating system for the domain controller for our Sacramento office, now it's time to install the domain controller. And as you can see that once you restarted your server operating system, and now if I just go to CMD and type ipconfig and host name, it should show the new IP address and host name for you. So if I just do host name, so it's SAC Azure DC01. That's the step number one. Before you install your domain controller, make sure that your PC name is correct the way you want it, because once you install your domain controller, then it is a little bit harder to just remove it, like demote it and then reinstall. So always make sure that the IP address, the computer name, and the settings that you really want is in there, and correct settings. So ipconfig 10.10.254.53. So I am good to go now. So back in old days, when you were trying to install an operating system or an Active Directory, what you were doing, like in Server 2000 and 2003, how you were installing the Active Directory domain controller was you were clicking on run, and then you were just doing DC promo, and then you were installing the domain controller. But with Server 2012, it is not like that. With Server 2012, how you can do that is different. So you will have to click on Server Manager that you have in taskbar, and then you have an option of add roles and features. Once you click in here, the next thing that you can do is click on next. It is going to be role based on a single server. You can see that it is showing the server SAC Azure and 10.10.254.53 and the operating system. Click next. Now it's asking you that what roles you want to install. Like, do you want to install Active Directory domain services? Yes. And I also want to install DNS, because DNS is always required for name resolutions. DNS is domain name systems, where it changes the IP address to name and name to IP address. So if you don't have a DNS server, you will not be able to join your servers, your workstations to the domain, because your workstations are using a name, they have a computer name, and whenever you try to join it to the domain will be needing those workstations to resolve their names, and then to the IP address, and IP address to the name. So DNS is very important part of domain controller, and without a DNS, it's not gonna work actually. But DNS can work without Active Directory domain. The Active Directory domain cannot work without DNS server. So that's the main and important point that you need to keep in your mind. So I'll just click on next, because we just need those services, and these are features like .NET Framework and all other things. So right now I don't need any of them, because the things that I needed was in roles, which was Active Directory domain services and DNS. Restart the destination server automatically if required. Restart it if it is really required. So you can see the summary of things that you checked to install. I'll click on install, and then we will let the installation begin, and we will wait for it to finish. So the installation is started. So as you can see that the installation is completed, and it says succeeded, and then it says configuration required. What does it mean is that when you install Active Directory domain services through roles, it is just installing the management console. It is not just installing a domain controller for you. So in order to have this server work as a domain controller, you need to promote this server as a domain controller. So as you can see that it says configuration required. So if I click here and then click on promote this server to a domain controller, that is going to be a way to simply complete this configuration. So I got three options in here: add a domain controller to an existing domain. I'm not gonna select this because this is a new environment and this is a new domain controller, first domain controller. It is also not a child domain controller, and it is going to be a new forest. So I'm gonna name it elmjotech.local. That is going to be the domain name. So the domain name is always your company name or your organization name, and whenever you're choosing a domain name, always make sure that you choose the best name for your domain controller, because if your company name is elmjotech and then you're selecting something else, you're choosing something else, that's not gonna work. So the best practice to choose your domain name is always your company or organization name or your institute name or any name that you want to pick up based on your standards or based on your use or requirements. I'll name it elmjotech. It's gonna search to see if in this network if there is any other domain name already exists with the elmjotech.local. If yes, it's gonna just give me an error. If not, it's gonna just show me the green light. So as you can see now is there was no domain controller with elmjotech. That's why you see no errors. And now it is forest functional level is Windows Server 2012 R2, which is the highest. And we are good with that. So we also want DNS to be installed. We also want global catalog to be installed. And then the password, type the directory service restore mode password in here. So whenever you want to restore your directory services, it is always going to ask you for a password. So just type any password based on your standards. Make sure that it is going to be a strong password, and then simply click next. So whenever you want to restore your directory services, you need to have that password with you. I'm gonna skip that DNS option because we are going to install DNS, and it says verify the NetBIOS name assigned to the domain, and it is change it if it is necessary. So it is going to be elmjotech. So this is going to be our domain name. So I'm just gonna leave it like that and click on next. The next option that we have is the path where our log files are going to be stored, where our, like whenever you will create a user account in Active Directory, or you will create an object like group computer accounts, where they are going to be stored like in a database folder. So it is going to be on C drive, Windows, and TDS. And for the log files, it's going to be C, Windows, and TDS. And then sysvol folder is going to be on C, Windows, sysvol. So these are three different folders that you will be using when you are promoting your domain controller. So one of them is going to be for log files, one of them is going to be for the databases. As I said, when you will create objects like user accounts, computer accounts, it's going to store each and everything in there. And in your sysvol folder, basically all your group policies will be stored. So if you have Active Directory knowledge, you should be knowing that what is group policy. So all your group policies are stored in your sysvol folder. I'll click on next. Review all your options in here. Like if you want to make any changes, click on previous. So you can simply click on next. It's gonna do a prerequisite check, and you can see that one or more prerequisites failed. Please fix these issues. Click rerun. So you can see that Right now I got two red warnings, which means that um, it is not good. So what I need to do is I will need to fix these red options first. So it says verification of prerequisites for domain controller promotion failed. The local account becomes the domain administrator account. So this is something that I did it on purpose, and I wanted to show you something. That's why I didn't skip that, and I just want to tell you something. So whenever you install your operating system through VMware, it just, after the installation, it just logs in as your physical machine user account. So it is not going to ask you for any username and password to log into that operating system that I have in here. So what I did is, like, I didn't assign any password because I just wanted to show you. So whenever you're installing a domain controller, the important thing is that you always need to make sure that you assign a password um, to your uh, to your user account. So all your user accounts, like your administrator account that you have, must have a password. If you don't have a password, then you will not be able to install the operating system. So in order to do that, click on Start, go to Admin Tools, and then click on Computer Management. It will bring up local users and group. Click on users, right click on administrator, set password, proceed. Now I'm going to assign a password to my local administrator for my domain controller. So again, just to clarify, if you are installing a domain controller, always make sure that you have assigned a password to your local administrator account. If you have not, then it is not going to work. It is not going to work. So I'll click on previous, click on next again. So let's see if it's going to give us the error again. Hooray! So all prerequisite checks passed successfully. Click install to begin installation. So you see now, these warning signs are not that important. You can, if you want, you can just fix it. If you don't, but still you will be able to install. So now you got install option. So that was one of the issues that I wanted to show you. So always make sure that your local administrator always have a password. So most of the time, that like the physical servers like that you have, they will always ask you to just put a password before you log in. But with virtualization softwares like VMware Workstation, it will just log you in using your physical machine username and password, and it will not ask you. So this is one of the troubleshooting things that I just wanted to show you. Always have password for your local administrator account. So as you can see that it is creating directory partitions, and it is just replicating, like all those things, creating objects, and doing different kind of things to promote this server as a domain controller. And once this is done, it is going to ask to reboot this server or operating system. And once you reboot, then you will no longer have the option to log in locally, because it will become a domain controller. And with domain controllers, you cannot log in locally, like you cannot use your local accounts. So you can see that it says you're about to be signed out. So okay, I'll click on close, and I'll close this one too, and it should restart. So it is restarting now, and it's gonna take a little bit of time, and we should be back. It is starting now for the first time as a domain controller, and you can see that it is taking a little bit of time because it is just preparing everything on the background, just loading all the settings, like everything. And for the first time, it always takes time when you promote the domain controller and you restart the operating system. So it is going to take a little bit time, and I'm going to pause the video. And now I am able to log in to the domain controller, and if I go in here and I again see that I'm logged in as a film Joe. So this is one of the bad things with VMware, and I'll just do Control Alt Enter, and then I'll click on Other User, and then I'll do Unjo Tech, which is my domain, and then Administrator, and then my password. So now I am logged in as a administrator, domain administrator, and as you can see now, it is going to again load the profile for me. And now if I just click on start and I do if I click on start and I do CMD and I do NSLOOKUP. So NSLOOKUP is a command that you can use to resolve your domain name. So one of the tips that I want to give you is always when you install your domain controller, make sure that you can do NSLOOKUP, because if you cannot do NSLOOKUP, what's going to happen is that that means that the workstations cannot resolve their like with the DNS, with domain name system. So as you can see that it is showing me colon 1, which is the IP version 6 address. So what I will do in here is I'll just come to my network settings and uncheck this IP version 6, and then I will try again to resolve the domain name using NSLOOKUP. So now you can see that it is 127.0.0.1, which is local IP address of this machine. So what I will do now is I will click on admin tools just to verify and see if my um, Active Directory users and computers is installed and running. Now when you see in here, you will see that 80 users and computer, it is running, and you have your computers folder, you have your users folder, which means that it is loading the 80, but still it cannot resolve this. So it says localhost and then 127.0.0.1. I want to see um, the SAC server in here. So what I'm gonna do in here is I'm gonna click on DNS, and the DNS is installed. I got forward lookup zone, and then I don't have any reverse lookup zone. So this one that you see in here is your forward lookup zone, which means that when I do ping SAC ejo DCO1, it is resolving it with the IPv6 address, which is always a problem. So in order to remove that IPv6, right click on your DNS server, click on properties, and then only use the following IP addresses on the interface. Click OK, and then right click here on your reverse lookup zone, click next, and it's gonna be running on all servers and domain on domain controllers in this domain, and this is going to be IP version 4 reverse lookup zone, and then for the network of 10.10.254. So what I'm doing in here is I'm making sure that when it resolves from name to IP, it should resolve from IP to name. So I'm telling it to allow secure updates for the DNS and click on next. So now if I come in here, Elmjo Tech, double click here and click on update PTR, what it's gonna do is it's gonna create a record in here which will help us with the name resolution. So NSLOOKUP is still it is 127.0.0.1. So if I come in here to the adapter settings, right click, properties, and you can see that it is 127.0.0.1. So I want to change it to 10.10.254.53. Okay, so these are like extra troubleshootings that I'm just showing you because you will face these issues when you're running VMware Workstation. So now you see that I got sac.ejo.ilmjo.tag.local. This means that now my DNS server is working, and now I will be able to go and proceed with other um, like other servers and creating objects, creating user accounts, or whatever I want. So this is how you can troubleshoot your domain controller, the DNS and everything when you're running on VMware Workstation. I just wanted to show these things to you because I'm sure when setting up a lab environment for yourself, you will be running into these issues. That's why I just wanted to show it to you, and I hope you have learned something, and I'll see you on the next video, and we will install operating system for our Exchange server.